On her birthday, the candles burned while her place at the table disappeared, and the choice her father made shattered a family in a single breath. She walked out with nothing but dignity, made one phone call in the dark, and by the next morning returned beside a man whose shadow could bankrupt cities. If you crave stories where betrayal turns into thunderous karma, where quiet strength humiliates cruelty, subscribe now and stay with us, because this story proves that when someone underestimates you, the universe sometimes answers with a tycoon and a reckoning. The birthday dinner had been planned for weeks, or at least that's what her father claimed as he adjusted his tie and rehearsed smiles in the mirror. But the truth revealed itself the moment Lena stepped into the chandelier-lit dining room and saw the place cards arranged with surgical precision. Her name absent, the adopted daughter's name centered like a crown, and the air thick with unspoken verdicts, because birthdays were supposed to be about celebrating life, yet hers had been quietly edited out, replaced by applause for Mila, the girl her father adopted 8 years ago after a tragic charity gala photo op that made him look benevolent and generous in the business pages. And Lena felt the familiar ache of being tolerated rather than loved, a feeling that had grown since her mother died and her father remarried ambition itself. And as the family gathered, glasses clinked and laughter floated. Her father raised a toast not to Lena's 24 years but to Mila's academic award, praising her resilience and grace, while Lena stood by the doorway holding a gift she had bought herself because no one else remembered. And when she cleared her throat to speak, her father glanced at her as if she were a staff member interrupting service, saying, "Not now, Lena. This night is for your sister," and the word sister landed like a paper cut turned blade, because Lena had been blood and history and grief, while Mila had been curated, and when Lena quietly reminded him it was her birthday, the room fell into a discomfort so heavy it bent spines, and her father sighed, rubbing his temple, and said the words that would change everything: "You're older, be understanding, don't be selfish," choosing peace over truth, optics over daughter, and something in Lena hardened, not into anger but clarity. And she placed the untouched gift on the sideboard, wished Mila congratulations with a polite nod, and walked out as heels echoed like punctuation marks ending a sentence she refused to keep writing. And outside the city hummed indifferent, neon bleeding into rain, and Lena's hands shook as she dialed a number she had sworn never to use, a number saved under a name she never said aloud, because it belonged to the man who had once sat at her mother's hospital bedside in silence, signing papers no one else would, the man whose companies powered half the skyline. The man her mother had called an old friend and nothing more. And when he answered with a calm, "Lena," she didn't cry, she simply said, "I need help," and he replied, "Come home," though she had never lived there. And the night passed in a blur of car headlights and decisions, and by morning the city buzzed with rumors because Lena returned to her father's house not alone but beside Victor Hale, the tycoon whose name froze conversations mid-sip, whose presence recalibrated rooms, and shame flooded the household like a sudden tide because Victor didn't raise his voice or threaten. He merely smiled with the patience of someone who had outgrown needing to prove power, and he asked for coffee as if this were a friendly visit, while Lena stood tall in a tailored coat she didn't recognize as hers yet fit like destiny, and her father stammered, apologizing to Victor for the inconvenience, mistaking the hierarchy entirely, until Victor gently corrected him by turning to Lena and asking, "Are you ready?" And she nodded, and he addressed the room with a quiet truth bomb, explaining that Lena was the sole beneficiary of a trust her mother had established years ago, a trust Victor had managed until Lena came of age, a trust that now included stakes in companies her father had once dismissed as small investments, companies that had since become arteries of the economy. And as documents slid across the table, the adopted daughter's smile faltered, the stepmother's composure cracked, and the father's face drained as he realized the house, the cars, the lifestyle he curated rested on loans underwritten by Victor's firms, and the choice he made the night before had consequences he could no longer negotiate away. And Victor didn't gloat, he simply stated that Lena had decided to move out and live on her own terms, and that any attempt to harass or coerce her would result in immediate restructuring, a polite word that hid avalanches. And as they left, Lena felt no triumph, only relief, because vindication without cruelty tastes clean. And days later the story spread, embellished by strangers who needed villains and heroes, while Lena focused on learning the language of boardrooms and boundaries, discovering that power could be quiet and kindness strategic. And her father called repeatedly, apologies tumbling over excuses, blaming stress and misunderstandings, but Lena listened without surrender, because forgiveness was not the same as access. And months passed and Mila visited once, eyes red, confessing she never wanted the crown that hurt someone else, and Lena hugged her, choosing compassion over rivalry, understanding that systems create winners and casualties. And then came the twist no one expected, when Victor revealed the final piece of her mother's legacy, a foundation in Lena's name aimed at funding overlooked talent, not charity optics but sustained opportunity, and Lena realized her mother had seen this day, had prepared her exit, had trusted her to choose grace with strength, and at the foundation's opening gala, Lena's father stood in the crowd, smaller than memory, clapping with the humility he had learned too late, while Lena took the stage and thanked the mentors who believed in her when she was quiet, and as cameras flashed, she didn't look back, because the past had done enough talking, and the future, finally, belonged to her.